Hello and welcome to our Ranorex webinar, Mastering Automation Helpers. My name is Andreas, and it's a pleasure to be your host today. Let me first start with a short introduction and a few facts. The target audience for today's webinar is supposed to be at practitioner's level, which means users with a basic knowledge and at least a little experience of working with Ranorex Studio. Don't worry, there's no need for any preparation. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available for you offline afterwards. The duration of today's webinar will be approximately 1 hour. We have an interesting but very extensive program for today, and I would like to start by telling you what we will learn today. So this will be the first thing now. First of all, I would like to tell you in a very short words, what are the Ranorex Automation Helpers? I will show you how to include them into your test solution, and finally how to update the automation helpers regularly and where to find useful resources in our user guide. Then we will have a look at some selected automation helpers modules. Namely, we will have a look on the report to PDF module. We will have a closer look on the useful email module. Then there's some automation helpers which helps you to handle pop-ups which may occur during an automated test run. We will make use of the systems library and measure some time in between two actions. We will do some advanced string library operations, as well as finally, of course, I will show you how to create an individualized log file by using some advanced library operations. So this will be the program for today, hopefully with lots of answered questions. So don't forget to ask us. We are here to answer your questions. I would say let's start. What are the automation helpers? So, and I would like to start by showing you the fields, possible optional fields of applications for automation helpers. So whenever you have a mail to be sent out automatically from within your test, or if you need to handle pop-up windows, you would like to create log files, write information into files, if you have to operate some advanced string or file operations or download files from websites, all of these are test automation requirements which are not easy to realize without coding experience. And to make these available to users without any programming experience, we offer the Automation Helpers module library and the user code functions. So we have a set of module library functions and user code functions which can directly be integrated in your test solution and used without any programming experience or coding knowledge. Automation helpers are publicly available. They are easy to install and use, and of course they are published as open source on GitHub too. So I would say let's start into it, and I would like to say to show you what I have prepared so far. So I have prepared a little test case, a Ranorex solution, and I would like to point that out by using the spotlight. So we have a solution, it's called Demo App Testing. We're using the Ranorex demo application. We have a project here which is called Demo App Testing, and we have two test cases, one which tests the introduction functions of this demo app and another which has some virtual file upload. So what we're going to do is, let me first run this. We have two run configurations here, and let me start by the first one. The first test case is a very simple one which opens the demo application right in a second, and I'm just waiting for the demo app to be started. Then it's taking a data source with 3 names, inserting the data into this name text field and validating the change of the welcome message. You may already know this tiny little program, and it finally ends up in a small test report which tells us that, I would like to show you this in a very short time. So we are having here, for instance, the first name Harry. We insert the name Harry into this name text field. So let me open up the demo application here. So we're inserting the name in here. Then we are submitting the name to the software, and we are validating finally here if the welcome message really responds to a reference message here. So if the welcome message here changes accordingly to the name. So this is a very, finally we hit the reset button and exit the demo application. So this is a very small test case, but it's useful for us to see how the automation helpers can be used to extend the functionality in here. So first of all, we need to install our automation helpers, and installing the automation helpers is quite easy. We switch into the projects file path here on the left hand side. So again, I'd like to point it out with the spotlight here. So we step into the projects file panel here, and what we could do is we simply could use this tool bar item here to add an automation helper, or simply to right click the solution, step into Ranorex Automation Helpers and add automation helpers. What you see here is a window where we click the button Add Automation Helpers. And what Ranorex does now is it loads the automation helpers from the GitHub repository and integrates them into your Ranorex test solution. Finally, when it's ended, you can see the green message here, and we close this window here. And what you have here now is you have another project here within your solution. It's called Ranorex Automation Helpers, and it contains all the modules of this automation helpers library. And of course, it includes all of the user code functions, the user code collection, which will be accessible through, yes, a user code action within your recording modules. I will show you this right in a couple of moments. Before we do so, I'd like to tell you how to update these. So if we right click it again and step into Ranorex Automation Helpers, you could go for Update Automation Helpers or simply click on the Manage Packages. And so every now and then you could observe if there are new new modules, new automation helper modules, or new user code functions in there to be used. The automation helpers library is intended to be extended by users or by user requests. So this is why we constantly develop it further. So let me see. I'd like to stick to my agenda, so not to lose grip. I've told you already what are automation helpers. I showed you how easy it is to include them into your test solution, and finally showed you where to update the automation helpers. And the first module we would like to have a closer look on is the report to PDF module. And this is what we're gonna do first. So what we're gonna do here is now I'd like to make a tear down section to my solution. So what I have here now is an empty tear down section of my test suite here. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to move the report to PDF modules automation helpers now into this tear down section. So I drag it over here, and it finally is now part of my test suite. And what you could see here is that it has a number of 5 unbound variables. So variables are usually a way of configuring an automation helpers module or a user code function. And many of our automation helpers modules don't need to be configured. they really work right in a way. So what we do for the moment is we simply ignore these 5 unbound variables and simply start our test run again. So during today's webinar, I will be executing this tiny little test suite for a couple of times to show you the results on the Automation Helpers library inclusion. And the test run just will be as it was before. We are performing the free validations in the change of this welcome message. And finally, when this is over, we are ending up in the report again, but with a little difference that now we also have a so-called PDF report. So let me see what's the difference now here. First of all, you see that we have a warning here in our report, and we could follow this exclamation mark here to see where this warning comes from. And what you could see here is that within the Automation Helpers module, here you could see a warning that the following module variables are not bound to any data or parameter. So we, as you may remember, we have 5 different variables here, and we didn't just do anything with them, we just ignored them. And this is a warning that there's no data binding, so there's no data behind for configuration. But what we have here after the test suite is that we successfully created a PDF report, obviously. So we have a green printed success message, and we have a link here. We could click this link, and what opens up is the default browser. In our case, it's the Internet Explorer. And what you can see here is the PDF report. So you have a very detailed report printed in PDF format. And what you can also see is that, of course, we have the same report stored in our solutions file directory. So if I step into the solution, into the project here, and into the output folder, it's the bin debug folder, into the reports folder, then you can see here that I have my PDF test report here. So I could double click it and open it again. It's my PDF report, which has been created out of the box. So let's have a more closer look on these configuration variables. So I close here the report, and finally, yes, let's right click here the test suite and do some global parameters. And I could use the auto create function. So I don't know if you know that, but since a couple of releases, we have some auto creation here. So what Ranorex does for us is creating parameters based on variables, module variables, which it finds. Still, they are now unbound, but I could do that very easily by doing some auto binding. And what I have now is here, I have a direct binding of the parameter with the module variable of my Automation Helpers library. So there's no need for looking into the code of this module. The only thing I need to do is now I need to specify here the parameters if I want to. And the parameters are, for example, if I do nothing, you have already seen that. So if I specify no name for my PDF report, then the PDF report receives the same name as the other report, as the normal HTML or XML report of Ranorex Studio. So, but as soon as I specify a name here, for example, I call it my report. Yes, I call it my report. Then it doesn't receive an automated name, it receives my individual name. I could also specify a special directory where to save it to. So if I have a directory which I call my PDF reports here, it's still empty, you could see that, but I'm gonna copy the path here and paste it into here. Then my report is being stored in there. I could also add some XML template file, layout file. Details is a very nice way of controlling the completeness of a Ranorex report. It's none, failed, or all, where all the details is the default value. I will show you right in a second in our user guide. And then you could specify by means of true or false if you would like to delete the regular Ranorex report or not. I will type in false just to leave it there. And now I go for OK and run the test again, just to show you where the report now has been stored and how these parameters are executed. So let Ranorex Studio execute my test case. And now we're inserting the free names here. And finally ending up with the report. So what we could see here now is, as we are finished, that the report is now in here. It's called my report, so it's stored into my local directory here. And I could also open it easily and see the report. There's what a user is asking that he's already using the report to PDF module out of our user guide functionality. And I should point that out here. If you step into our user guide, into the Ranorex Studio fundamentals, then you will find the last chapter here, it's reporting, and we have converting reports into other data types. So this is already, we have a report to PDF tool already, which is offered to our users apart from the automation helpers. So you could use that individually. And there we have already here these configuration settings here for the detail, which is none, failed, or all, or the style sheet for a custom individualized style sheet. So what the automation helpers do is they make use of this tool, and the advantage is that you need not do that manually anymore afterwards. You simply can include it within your test suite structure. So this is what we do here. So far so good. Let me remove this again so we don't need this anymore here. And let me delete also these global parameters here, which we don't need anymore for the moment. Click apply and close. So coming to our agenda is report to PDF. I have showed you, but just again, one question. One of our participants didn't understand what the XML parameter is used for. It's a parameter where you could attach or name the CSS, the cascaded style sheet file to control a more individualized look and feel of your report. And when you step into our user guide, into the reporting section, then you have here the complex customizations and the customization basics, where you will see how to define an individual look and feel of your report based on cascaded style sheets, which is the XML formatting layout. So this was the answer to this question. And to go on here is many of the people of users ask us to how could we send a report automatically by mail, or could we inform somebody if a test run failed or if a test run has ended by email? And emailing is not that easy when you use Ranorex Studio in a codeless version, but our automation helpers module, email module, will help you now. And this is what I would like to show you right in a second now. So let's open up the test suite here and see here we have our test case with the introduction function test, the welcome message test. Here we have a small smart folder where the names are inserted based on the data-driven approach. And finally, at the teardown, we close the application. And this is the place where we now insert our email module. So let's assume we would like to send, after the test case has been finished, we would like to send an email to someone telling that the test run has been executed successfully. And what you could also see here is now that this Automation Helpers library has 14 unbound variables. Unfortunately, we need to deal with those because, as you might consider, we need to specify whom to send, from where to send. We need to specify a subject, a body, and so on and so forth. And that's why we need to handle this a little bit. It's not that complicated. I would like to show you. So let's go into the test case. I right-click here for a data source, and I have prepared a data source with all those email credentials, and I would like to simply show you how this is done. So I'm adding a new Excel file which I have prepared. It's called let's call it my email credentials. Yes, and let's go for the file here. You can see I have a file here. I show you right in a second. And I would like to copy it into my project so that it's easier to come into it and apply it. And now let me mask out. I don't want you to see my server's host name, and I don't want you to see my username and password. That's why I mask them out. And then I click apply and I click OK. And it's loading now the file, and I'm going into the data binding. And what you see here is now a number of 14 different arguments here, which are now bound to a data source. It's the subject, the body of the mail, it's the recipient, so to whom I would like to send it to, from whom it is coming, the server's host name, the port, which is usually the port number 25. Then it's true or false if you want to use a secured socket layer protocol, which is something towards security. Then, of course, we have the username and the password to specify. And then there's a number of flags you could set. So you could send the mail only on failure. You could send the mail only on success. It's true and false flags. You could attach a zipped report on complete or a PDF report on complete. And of course, you could also add another style sheet here if this is necessary. So someone is complaining that he's unable to hear anything. I guess everybody else is hearing me, so unfortunately this is on you, and you should really think about your technical equipment here. And so there's another question of someone if he can use and maintain one repository in different solutions. My friend, this is far beyond the scope of today's webinar. Yes, you can maintain and manage one repository in different solutions, and I will show you right on Wednesday. This week, there's a webinar where I show you how to maintain and use repositories in our hands-on experience webinar. So let's go on here and do some auto binding here too. So you can see now I have bound my data to my external data source. I apply and click OK. And I would say let's write first start the test run and afterwards see how the settings have been and how the effect has been. So again, I start this easy to handle Automation Helpers email module, and you will see it's really no rocket science. It's very easy. I haven't yet looked into any line of code until now, so it's no need to look into code of the implementation of this Automation Helpers functions. So the test run starts by inserting the names and validating the changed welcome message again, and we're waiting for the test to be finished. So that's the way it did now. And so again, we have a successful green pie chart indicating us the test run has been successfully ended. So let's go into that a little bit here. Let's expand all the details. And what you could see here is here the names have been inserted. It has been validated. This is not of interest at the moment, so all the names have been interested, and here we go. This is the interesting part now, where we have our email module here. It's right after we closed our application. Then it's time to send the mail. And what you could see here now is that we have I have a prepared subject, which is called finished Ranorex test execution. I have a mail body telling us this is to notify that the current test execution has been finished. Find the zip test report below. Then I have a recipient, which is my private email address. So don't send me mails on my private email address, but I sent it here for test purposes. It's from my business email address here. The service host name is masked so that you may not copy it. The server port is 25. I don't use any secure socket layer. I don't need to have a username and a password here because I'm sending it from within my network here. If you somehow need to specify this, please ask that at from your system administrator. Then I'm sending the mail on failure and I'm sending it on success. I'm adding a zipped report, which is true here, but I don't send a PDF report and I don't have a style sheet. And finally, we are told at the end that a zipped report has been generated and it has been sent per mail to this mail address here. And now let's have a look if this already has worked. So let's open up another window here and step into my post entry box. And here we go. This is a mail which should be deleted. But here we have our Ranorex test report mail. It's finished. Ranorex test execution. It's from me to me on my private address here. And then this is to notify. And then we have a test report which can be downloaded now onto my downloads folder. And once I step into that here, into the downloads folder, I have it here. It's the rxzlog file, and once I double click it, it's opened with the report viewer of Ranorex Studio. So you can see it's the full report in here, which has been sent by mail. So sending a mail using the automation helpers is really not rocket science. It's a very nice and a very helpful and useful tool within your test execution. So once again, I delete it now, and once again, I'm deleting the data source here. So the email credentials will be deleted. Click OK, and I click OK, and that's how the story goes. So let me see what we have done so far. Yes, we're in a good way. We still have some 30 minutes to go, and we come to a very interesting topic now. It's the so-called pop-up watcher. So there's one question. Is it also possible to send the summary detail report in subject and body of the mail without attachment? No, unfortunately, I'm sorry, this is not possible. This should be done or needs to be done by yourself within copy pasting it into your report. But usually you're only able to send a zipped report, which makes a lot more sense when you want to work with it. So it's an XML-based HTML report, or it's a PDF report, and this is makes much more sense if you send it. Another question, how old is the Ranorex Automation Helpers library? Yes, indeed, it's already a couple of years old. So we have it already for a couple of years. I cannot tell you if it's 3 years or if it's, I think somehow between 3 and 4 years, but it hasn't been that public yet. So we failed to tell users that it's there, and we are now far more pushing it to make use of it. Thank you for your question. So now we come to a very interesting topic, which is the pop-up watcher. And every now and then you may be, especially when it comes to web testing, you're confronted with pop-up windows which simply pop up and disturb or disrupt your automated test run. And this is something which could be very boring and very tedious, frustrating. And now we have a pop-up watcher which is very easy to handle. And I would like to show you how this works. So first of all, let me introduce you to this pop-up watcher. I have a very small application here. It's called the pop-up generator here. And once I activate it, it starts to generate a pop-up window approximately every 15 seconds. So we are needing, I need to talk. Yes, here it goes. This is a pop-up window. You could see that. And I only can close it by clicking the OK button, and then it's gone again. And then another 15 seconds afterwards, there's another pop-up window, and so on and so forth. So as long as this is activated, it creates pop-ups because I don't have, for any test purpose, I don't have pop-ups at hand here. Usually they come up in a very unintended way, and that's why we have this pop-up generator here for demonstration purposes. And yes, this may severely disturb your automated test run, and that's why it's a nice and easy way to, to show how to handle this. So first of all, we need to prepare our test case a little bit so that it works. So I have already created here some modules. So here's the pop-up watcher test. So let's start the pop-up generator right before we start our application under test. And let's end it again right after we close our application on the test. So this is just to make it a little bit cleaner here. And then unfortunately, we need to delay our test run a little bit. So I need to insert some timely delays so that it really slows down a little bit after the insertion, after submission, and after validation, the welcome message. And yeah, that's where we insert some delays just to slow it down a little bit, to bridge these 15 seconds where the pop-up really pops up. And now comes the interesting part, and I would like to show you how to include an automation helper's user code function. So not everything, so let me point that out with the spotlight. Not everything is implemented as a module. Many helpers are implemented as user code functions. And the advantage is that you can insert them at any point in your recording modules. So how do we do that? I think we create a new recording module here, and we put it into the pop-up watcher test folder, and we call it, let's say, start handling pop-ups. So we have an empty recording module, and now I show you how easy it is to include an automation helper's code function. So we add a new action, we add a new user code action, and we select it from the library. And as you could see now, you have a very enriched library here with different user code functions. So to point that out here in an overview, you have a drag and drop library, you have an email library, which is the same as the email module, but you could also insert it within the recording module. We have some file library functions. Here we have the pop-up watcher library, some string library functions, system library functions, validation library, and web is below. And I will show you a selected portion of these functions by today, and all of these are described in our user guide, which I will show you right afterwards. So what we need now is start pop-up watcher. So this is the user code function we need, and we simply confirm the selection and have it here. And it's very easy to see that the configuration of these automation helpers libraries are done by arguments. So arguments are needed to control and configure the work of these user code functions. So again, we don't need to look into the code implementation, but we need to hand over some information so that this user code function can work properly. And what we need here is we need a repository item of the pop-up window, and we need a repository item of the UI element, which is to handle the pop-up. So something like an OK button or close button or something like that. So whenever you have a pop-up, you have a two-step action. First, you have the UI element, which represents the pop-up itself, and then you have somehow of a button or something like that to handle it, to close it, to end it, to kill it, and so on. So what we have here is I already have a repository where I have this pop-up window tracked and the close button, the OK button. So what I do is I drag the first item up here. So it's the pop-up window and the button which should be clicked afterwards here. So what we have here is a user code function now, which takes as an argument the repository item of a small pop-up window and the repository item of the referring and included close button, the OK button of this window. And now let's see how this works. So I close this. And yes, we should start handling pop-ups. Yes, we activate it right after we start our application under test. So let's do that. So first we start the pop-up generator, we start our application under test, then we start handling the pop-ups, then we wait for 2 seconds and we go on. So one question, can we also block pop-up of Google Chrome? Yes, that's the intention of our pop-up watcher. It's especially for web testing. The only reason for why I show this to you by means of a desktop application is I have my pop-up generator here, and it's somehow a safe environment to show you, not to have any unexpected settings here, and this is the only reason. So let's go for a try and let's run this. I close this window here to make clean screen here, and we're waiting for Ranorex to open up the debug window here. That's how it goes. Then we are waiting for the application started and the pop-up generator is started. The pop-ups are now activated, the application started, and the test case goes on. The execution of the test case goes on. And as soon as a pop-up window appears, here you can see it, it's handled by clicking the OK button, and then it's resuming the regular test run again. So the test run continues, and every time a pop-up window appears on the screen, it's handled in the way we have specified it. I cannot tell when and how often this window appears, but it's handled in, it seems to have been something out of track, so let's go for an OK for that. What I would like to show you now is that you can find these handles in here. So whenever in the report, whenever a pop-up appeared and has been handled, it's marked within the report in here. So does the use of a user question, does the use of one or more pop-up watchers has an impact on performance? Yes, of course, it has an impact on performance. I cannot tell you now how much it is. Is it 10% or 15%? I cannot tell you. But as a matter of fact, the pop-up watcher is a process behind which is listening and which is watching if a pop-up appears, and of course this has some time consumption on the execution time too. Of course it has. That's why you should be aware of when to handle pop-ups, because usually it's not necessary to handle pop-ups during the complete test process. Usually you know when pop-ups are expected to come up, and that's when you should watch them, and when afterwards you could stop watching again. So let me see how far we have gone so far. Yes, I should clean that again, so we don't need the start pop-up watcher. The delays we should remove again here to make a clean test case. So where are we? Yes, we have 3 things left to do, and we have some 15 minutes left. So first of all, I would like to show you how to measure time, and then some string library and file library operations. Let's hurry on. First of all, how to measure time. How to measure time is a very easy thing. So let's step into the next test case, the upload test in here. So we have the start upload. What do we do here? Let's run it and let's explain how it is executed, and then you will see it's very easy. It's just a virtual upload test of our demo application. So it's very easy to see. So here we go. We're changing into the upload testing area, starting the upload, waiting until it is finished, and finally closing the application again. And if you want to measure the time between the beginning the start and ending the start, this could be done by a simple time measurement, and I would like to show you this. So let's create a recording module which is called timer start. And it's very easy because we add a new user code function here from our library, and it's from the system library here. So we simply start a timer, and you could give it a name. So you could start several timers in parallel and stop them individually as you want to go along. And the timer start now, we will start immediately after we start the upload. We start the timer, and after it has been finished, we have a next one here. Oh, I could simply add it in here. So we are waiting for the upload to be finished, and I could add a new library function here, which is simply the stop timer. So where do we have it? System library stop timer here. So we stop it here. Again, if you have given it a name, you could specify the name too. And once I go along and I start this now, you will see that the stopped duration of the time will be printed into the report. So let us execute this time, this test run, and let's see if there are some interesting questions in parallel. Are we looking at only browser-based pop-ups, or does Windows-based pop-ups like meeting reminders in calendar impact the testing? You can handle all the pop-ups, so not only the browser-based pop-ups, but also Windows-based pop-ups. This is the major advantage of Ranorex Studio, which can handle everything outside of your browser window too. So this is one of the advantages of Ranorex Studio. So let me come back to the result of the test case. So here we have started the timer. You could see that the timer has been started. We're waiting, and after the timer has been stopped at around 5 seconds afterwards, and the duration has been printed in here. You could handle the result as a string back and use it in some variable or stuff like that. But unfortunately, we don't have time to step into this too much in detail. What I would like to show you now is a very interesting topic. It's some advanced string operations. And here's something which I would like to point out. Let's go back to our welcome message test here. And let's right-click here for the data source. What you could see here is that I have a data source containing 2 columns here. So the first one is the name, which is inserted into the name text field, and the second is the matching string for the validation. And what is not a very good construction is that the reference string here for the matching has been typed in here manually, and this might be a source of a failure. So it would be much better if I don't need this matching string here, but if I create my matching string on my own, if I construct it out of the name. And this is something which I will show you by means of some string operations. So what we will do is we will step into the validation message here. And what here we simply have a validation where we match the text attribute of the welcome message. So this is this here. Let me show you. So if I type in a name here and submit it, then what we validate here is the text value of this string here. If the text value of this string equals the content of this variable, and this variable contains the complete string, as I told you, it's welcome Harry, welcome Sally, welcome Norman, and so on and so forth. And this is something which I would like to change. So what I do here is I now add a new user code library from my automation helpers, and it's concatenating two strings. So let's put it in here and put it on the first step. So what I do here is a two-step concatenation. So I have the first one and I copy paste it so I have a second one. So I have two concat string operations here, and in the first one I would like to construct the first text of this validation message. It's welcome, comma, and a space. This is the first part, and the second part should be filled with the name of the data source. So we will define a new variable here, and we call it variable name from data. Oops, now this is gone. We need here welcome again, and we need to put it into a variable which we call a temporary variable. So I call it variable temp. Again, this is gone. It's a little bit nasty. Welcome. So now we have it. What do we have here now? In the first step, I create a temporary variable where I put in the fixed string welcome, comma, space, and I add the name from the data, which is given in a variable. And what I do in the second one is now into the variable match name, which is the variable to be validated. I put in the value from the temporary variable and again add an exclamation mark at the end. So this is what I'm going to do. So now I have constructed my matching value out of the name. So I click save and I end this. And I need to bind it, of course. Here up, I have my data source. So what I do here is now I simply delete this to show you that it works without this. And I have my data binding where I also bind my data in here to the variable name from data. I click OK and I save it. And yeah, I should also mention it in the report, possibly. So I should add some report line here, some log message here, and let's print the variable's match name in here so that we can see it, what has been matched. So finally, let's run the test and see what happens. Usually, if I haven't done it too quick and made some mistake, it should work now. So we are waiting for the small test run to run for almost the last time. There's only one thing I would like to show you afterwards. One question I had. Why there is the string concatenation of two strings only? I'd expect within the string library only one concatenation function which handles multiple string parameters. Thank you again for your request. We could do that. please reach out to ranorex.com to the automation helpers. There's one application form for useful automation helper functionalities which could be extended by Ranorex. I will show you at the end, and we will definitely think of that. And if it gets some other hands too, we will of course implement it. So what you can see here. So again, automation helpers is nothing fixed from Ranorex. It's something which lives with our users, and you may apply for changes and extensions. So once again, we come in here, and you could see that we have one warning because two variables haven't been bound to any parameter or data source, and you could see we have constructed, we only have given the name, and we have constructed the match value out of it by means of this string concatenation. And last but not least, I would like to show you a way of creating your own log file. So sometimes creating a log file is not easy without coding, and Ranorex has prepared something for you. So what I have here is I have prepared a simple log file which only consists of a headline and some kind of underlined here. So it's a log file, and we now should copy it into the output folder of my solution. So I put it into the bin debug folder in here. So you could see the log file is in here now. And what I do here is now I show you how simple it is to create a log file. So let's assume after every test run here, we would like to print the name which we have been validating into the log file. So let's create a new recording module, which is called write log. Yes, and let's add a new user code function here from the library, and it's from the file library. There's a lot of functions here. They all well documented in the user guide now. So we have an append string to existing file function here. So I confirm this, and this function either appends something to an existing file, or if it's not there, it creates a new file. So first of all, let's go into this. Let's assume we would like to insert a value name pair. So I need to have two functions here. So I copy paste it. So the first should be validated name is, and the second should be then the name from a variable. So let's hand it over from variable log name. So, and we need to print it into our log file. So the name is mylogfile.txt. So this is where we put it in here. So it's mylogfile.txt. You could use any name, any directory here. If you don't specify a directory, it's printing it in the output folder. So file.txt. And then we have an interesting thing here. So I want to place the first name into a new line and append the second one just to the first one. So this is why I use add a new line first true and then false. Let's see if this works. So first of all, we need to insert it. So where do we have it? Here's log file. We write this log right after resetting. And of course, we need to bind it to our data. So I need to bind the name even to my log file names here. So, and then finally, first let's run it and then let's explain what we have done so far. So we are letting the test run to automate. There's another question. Is this the common way to extend the automation helpers? Sir, I should tell you there's two ways of extending the automation helpers. The first thing is you could download the library, the automation helpers library, and you could do anything you want to do it on your own. So if you have programming experience, if you have access to programmers, then they could extend whatever they would like to do with the Automation Helpers library. It's public, it's freely available, and you can do whatever you want. But if you want to have it into a next release, so if you want to find your extensions in a next release too, then you must let us know. So you need to apply for a change. You must send us the change to support@ranorex.com or at the there's Nadel could just typed in its GitHub folder here. You could apply for those, and then if it is really useful, if it has a good user voice standing, then we implement it into a new release. That's the way how it goes. It's a rather complicated communication then, but consider we have thousands of users worldwide, and it must be some way of controlled mechanism. So let's see the result of our reporting here. What you could see here in our report message is that we inserted the name, submitted, validated, reset it, and then we wrote into the log file. And let's open that. You could see that we handed over the name of the person to be validated, and we added 2 new files to the log file. And once you open up now the log file, you could see that these logs have been added to the log file too. So I guess I'm almost done with the content. It is really an extensive program. So let's see. Yes, we have done almost everything. So I only had a chance in 60 minutes to show you some selected operations. Let's go to the summary and show you where to find all that. So one of the most important questions, where and when can we find this recording? Sir, I should tell you that I prepare a new recording out of that. I do a little bit of cutting, and give me 1.5 up to 2 hours, and then you will automatically receive an email, a follow-up email, including the download link of this webinar. Thank you very much for asking this. So where to find information in the user guide? This is the first thing I should tell you. So what we have is, if you step into our homepage support and the help center, then you will find the user guide for the Ranorex Studio, and currently you will find the automation helpers in the hands-on application topics. So here we have the automation helpers with a list of automation helpers here. Yes, my name is Andreas. I thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this webinar, and I hope to see you soon in one of our upcoming cool webinars. For today, I wish you a great day. Thank you very much. Yes, and goodbye.